So here we are. It is the fourth Saturday of the month, which means it's time for the Learn Pro Poker Study Group here at Rook Poker. So on the first day of every month, we release a full-length premium training video from Ryan LaPlante and Learn Pro Poker. We give our members a month to watch it and absorb the material. And then we have this study group on the fourth Saturday of the month to talk about the video, talk about the concepts. We don't share the material here in the study group because we put this out for free for our community members on YouTube to watch. But anyone else who's a premium member can join along every month and can watch all these amazing training videos from Learn Pro Poker and our other learning partners. So,
so where do you find the video, Jim?
Yeah, so great question. So if you go to, in fact, why don't I share my screen here for a second? And I think, yes, for folks, am I sharing the right screen? Do you see?
Yeah. Yep, it is showing direct poker.
Okay, here we go. Right. So the best way to do this would be to go to, if you go to our homepage, premium members who are logged in will see any moment now, I think because I'm running all this recording software, the computer's a little slow. So any of these buttons here are probably your best friends as a premium member. But you can also go up to resources, and there's some good stuff here too. The content archive is the same as watching videos. So if you watch videos or go to the content archive, you'll come to this place, which is all our videos from all the different categories. And if you click on Learning with Partners, you'll just see the Learning with Partners ones as opposed to all the different videos that we put out. And then the best way to do it is just to scroll down to the first day of the month. And the first day of the month was August 1st. And so this was the Learning with Partners Learn Pro Poker video that was released. So it's the 28th of August today. On the 1st of September, we'll release the next Learn Pro Poker strategy video. And you can watch along there. This one was about deep runs. So Ryan LaPlante took 3 hand history sessions from people in his group or coaching clients and did a hand history review of the last 2 to 3 tables of a few different tournaments. And Kevin, we were just talking before we started recording. You came in second in the online home game last night and ended up playing heads up for about a half an hour, and how that was a very different experience than, you know, full ring or even shorthanded. So can you tell me a little bit about like what made it feel weird or what was unusual about that experience?
Well, if you want to talk about it, let's talk a little bit about, I had never actually seen myself getting to that position, right? So a lot of what I've been studying has been hand ranges, has been places in the tournament, right? And then I was doing stuff earlier with the week. We were talking in a different podcast about another member that was showing his final table, and that was in the monthly champions thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. The tournament champions review.
To put it, so it was just, so I kind of started thinking that I needed to change how I played tournaments because I was going more with the cash strategy than the tournament strategy, and I found myself to get down with 3 other very good rec poker tournament players, right? They're probably leading the rec poker. And I thought, wow, I'm like, I think I might be outclassed here being the rec poker fish. Right? So, I did end up we then get up second. I went into that with a low start to my pot. I think I had 33,000. He had 75 plus.
Yep.
And then it became, like I was telling Jim before that, we started exchanging chips, right? And I would get up and I got up where I would get up, we got tied. I went up to, I think I got him down to 6,000, right? And then it changed again, right? I couldn't close the deal for whatever reason. My skills weren't there. And he came back and we tied again. And then he went up. And I think my last hand that I went all in on was kind of borderline, right? But then he ended up winning and we finished. So it started probably at about 11. We got done about 11:30ish. So
yeah, that's a lot of hands heads up though. Half an hour, right? Especially online.
Yeah.
So and I know we had been talking earlier about like how wide our ranges should be in different spots and, in different positions, and getting shorthanded, and how when you get down to like 5-4-3 players, just like you said earlier, you have to play some hands you wouldn't ordinarily be playing, right?
Right. Yep.
Just because the blinds are coming by so fast. And I think that is a real tough
And I
adjustment
couldn't,
because,
and I know I just couldn't sit there and wait for the best hands.
right.
Right. So the final table playing against the three people that I really tightened up. I really tightened up my ranges because I knew that they had skill. They had the skill level on me, right? So I tightened up and played a little bit more tight game and got to the final. And then I just kind of opened up with anything that I really thought would make a really good hand, right?
Yeah.
So offsuited gappers, right? I was opening with things that I was just like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, but that's how you get comfortable with it, right? Is
Right.
going through that, and like the first time we do any of that stuff is hard. Like, and intentionally expanding your ranges is uncomfortable.
Yes. Yep.
So that's why it's great that you're doing it in the rec poker home game, right, where it's all play money, and
Well, I wouldn't be
that's the
doing it
place
anywhere
where,
else, right? That
yeah,
that I think that's one of the things that I was talking with the boss about, was that it's a great learning experience, right? I mean, it doesn't cost me, right? Until I blew away all my, I think I spent like $20 to buy chips, right?
yeah.
Because I kind of chipped all my money off. But it's a great learning experience for free, right? So it's just time now. It's my time. It's not. I remove my study. I have goals in poker, right? More than just being a rec player. But this is great, right? I'm getting great experience, right? But I'm putting time in outside of it. But the thing that I guess all the people that I say you got to do, get out and do action, do it, right? Even if you're not doing it correctly, get out there and learn, right? So that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing about playing in those free tournaments is you and the players and they're great, right? So and they're helpful. Right? So,
Yeah, they're helpful and they're serious. It's not like
yeah.
some of those play money tournaments where people are just in there
Well,
splashing around and not being serious about it.
anytime I see Pet Bet, oh, there she is
Yeah.
in the tournament. I'm like, don't be to my left. Don't be to my
Don't
left.
be to my left. That's right. Hey, Kim, we're just talking about Eric took second place last night in the home game, and it's his first time putting in like a real heads up battle. So he was heads up with another
Elvis.
player for Elvis, yeah, for half an
Elvis
hour.
76.
And so we're just kind of talking about how it's kind of hard to get that kind of practice too, in other circumstances, because it's so important to get that practice when you're shorthanded and heads up like that, because it's so
That's
different.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. I did make final table last night, but as usual with rec poker, I ran under expectation. But I got it in kings versus ace something,
Uh-oh, I know what happened.
and the ace hit.
Of course it did. Of course it did. Yeah, that's
those
poker,
two
folks.
lines are in rec poker. My two lines are like this far apart. I see other people and their lines are like this.
Oh yeah, they're like crisscrossing each other, not you.
Or they're running way above expectations.
Yeah. So Kevin, we're talking here about the in Poker Tracker 4, it's got your actual results are this green line, and then it's got your all in expected EV. Yeah. Kim's been mathematically unlucky for a while, I guess is the way to be thinking about that. But just think about how due you are, Kim, for when the big turnaround comes. Get that in Vegas. You realize all that positive expectation in Vegas.
Yeah. Where was that stat again? I didn't know where that.
Which one?
That stat, like,
it's in
that graph. It's just under graphs.
It's in one of the far right reports there. My reports or my graphs or something, and then it's the total. What is it? It's the
net expected big blind.
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I could just show you that graph.
Yeah.
Started out even. Yeah, I could show it to you right now.
Here,
Am I
put it
allowed
up.
to share
Put it up
screen?
if you like. Yeah, you should be able to. If you're not, let me know and I'll give you permission.
What's it? Oh, that's because I'm looking at him. Oh.
Here we go. Oh, look at that. Now in this one, you're running above expectation over the
That's not
last
the one then.
17 tournaments.
Hang on. That's only,
No limit and pot limit. Oh, it must be a particular subset. I think you're looking at
hang on.
a subset
No
of
limit
tournaments. in
and
there.
pot limit, all dates. My big blinds one.
Overall stats? No.
Yeah, that's
I don't know,
300
I can't-
tournaments. That should be it. Oh, well, we'll find it.
Never mind.
We'll find it in one of our sessions.
Yeah,
We'll find
buy-ins.
it.
You're looking for a specific buy-in?
Oh no, Kim's
No,
trying to
I did that.
Kim's
I
trying to
was just
show
trying to
how
show
the
how
difference
badly I
between her
run.
green line and her yellow line. It's like it's a bad beat meta story.
Ah,
Yeah.
So
Oh, that- I
actually,
see, that was just, you know what? That was just in one, that was under one
one month
position
or
on the
position or
table.
something. Oh,
No,
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. It felt like a subset. Two, not enough
It
data.
was.
So we were just talking about this month, the theme in the Learn Pro Poker strategy video is late runs and deep runs, I guess I should say. The last 2 or 3 tables. And it's a trend that we've kind of been covering a bit this month or the last month at Rec Poker, which is applying pressure really is the key. And Kevin was talking about it here earlier, how important ICM pressure is and how you have to tighten up when you're feeling a lot of pressure and how you can loosen up when
Quick
you're
share.
applying the pressure. Oh, here we go. There you go, over 400 tournaments. Yeah. There was that brief period where you were running
I
above
ran
EV.
well.
Yeah, that's right. And then, yeah, you have not been hitting your flips, Kim.
No, I've not been hitting when I've been way ahead.
Yeah,
I was just saying
exactly.
I made last night's final table too, Eric, and I was saying how I lost to the 3-outer as usual.
As you rigged, poker starred, poker starred. In one of the opas a few weeks ago, I decided that I was going to start claiming that it was rigged every time I won a 3-outer or something like that, because it's just I got to balance my range. I can't just complain about it being rigged when I lose. Next time I hit a 3-outer, I'm going to be out there. # poker starred.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, one thing that I wanted to say, you said you were getting down to like 4 or 5 handed, and you felt like the other players at the table might have had a skill edge against you, or you felt like you were a dog.
Yeah.
So in that case, you're right to be tightening up a bit, but with your tightened range, you're also better off playing it really aggressively, because things like post flop play, position, stacked depth, those are
Right.
things that are advantages to the skilled players.
Well,
So
that thing I forgot to tell you, right? I was also the one with the least amount of chips playing
Right.
out of those.
right.
So
But even more so then, I feel like you should feel like that frees you up to just put those chips in the middle, because you're always going to have something like 30% equity against almost every hand they come up with. If you just put your chips in the middle pre-flop, or on the flop when it goes your way or something, it's hard. One of the great things about no limit hold'em, for me anyway, is that you're hardly ever actually drawing dead. And so if you feel like the other people in the table have more skill or expertise or experience than you do, take that advantage away from them by not letting that part of the game be explored. So if you've got like ace queen or ace jack, or even king jack suited or something, and you get a chance to just put it in the middle, you're kind of you're not allowing your opponents to play to their strength.
Right.
And conversely, like we talk about sometimes, if we're playing in a game where we feel like we do have a skill edge, then we should be less likely to put it in the middle, and we should be more likely to play conservatively and to call instead of raising, or to not take a 50-50 spot. But if you feel like you're behind, take all those 50-50 spots, because deciding whether to call correctly on the turn versus a 2/3 pot size bet is a much harder. They're going to get that right more than 50% of the time. So that's
Right.
Yeah, and there was one thing. I don't remember, Kim, in your hand history group the other night. I think Elizabeth said something about, like, if they have jacks here, you're just going home every time. Do you remember that? Or maybe I'm thinking of a different session.
Yeah, no, when we were talking about the Jack 10, there was a
Yes.
Jack 10 something else board we were talking about. And
Yeah.
she was, we were talking about how we were ranging opponents, right? And she was saying, well, you're just, when you overbet 2 times the pot and shoved all in on the turn, aren't you just losing to everybody that has 2 pair, right? And
Right. That's what it
probably,
was.
or if they have a ace jack, and yes, you are, but you're making this large proportion of hands that you're already beating or that have good equity against you fold.
And that's so key to this part of the game that we're talking about here, these late runs where it's the last 2 tables or something, where getting them to fold is key. And also, you are going to lose sometimes and you're going to go home. And like, there's not a but there. Yeah, you're going to lose sometimes. But that's going to happen most of the time you play poker anyway. Only one person wins the tournament, right? So you have to have some risk in that part of your game. And it's better to have that kind of risk as the person shoving it in, particularly when ICM becomes an issue. So other than playing in the home game, how have you guys had success like working on that or studying ICM or different stack sizes or late tournament play? So like Kevin's trying to spend more time. Kevin's been a Rec Poker premium member for a while, so he's obviously going to be getting to more final tables. So we got to focus on how we can get him feeling comfortable in that position when he's made it to the final table. Now we're 7-handed, now we're 5-handed, and we want him to feel like he's not leaving a skill edge on the table. So what are some ways that Kevin can study that aspect of the game or practice?
I mean, to me, it really starts knowing your pre-flop ranges and how it changes with stack depth. Knowing that, and the adjustments. So knowing that suitedness, the value of suitedness goes down as your stack depth decreases. So like, like King 3 suited, is a great hand at 100 big blinds, but it's not that great at 20. So knowing that, and then adjusting, making adjustment for position. So I like to really value late position. So hand and early position, I'll be probably tighter than the GTO charts, but maybe looser in late position than GTO charts, because I think people people play tighter as they get deeper. So it's actually theoretically opposite. You should actually play a little bit looser as you get shallower. So things like that. Seeing how people react. Are people overfolding their blinds, and not feeling bad of, like, if you made a play and that's correct and it didn't work this time, you happen to go into, you happen to run to somebody's top of range, so you open late position, blinds call, you make a small C bet, and then they check raise you, throw your junk away and move on. But sometimes you think, I shouldn't have made that play. No, you know what? That play is earning your chips if you do it 100 times, right? It's just, this is one of the times where, they had it.
You mean, so like losing the tournament, I had trip 10s and I walked into a straight, right? So
that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't really upset by it because I couldn't play. I didn't have to take the tournament or to get more chips. I had no better hand really than in that moment than to play trip 10s, right?
Well, and that's another great point, because like a lot of this, no one has a roadmap to first place. Like it
Right.
very rarely is it just like, oh, I just got a bunch of great cards and I had aces and he had kings, and like that does happen. But usually it's, I got card dead for half an hour, I got unlucky in this one spot, I got lucky in this other spot, and it's like I think there's this tension, this good tension between like wanting to wait for the right spot, the right cards, but also like not missing opportunities that come by.
Yeah.
I
So
think
yeah,
for
it's still, go ahead, Kim.
I was going to say, I think for studying ICM, I learned most of my ICM stuff with Solve for Why, because they did a huge amount of their training for tournament play on ICM specifically. But I think that our friend of our group, Dara O'Carney, is coming out with a new book that's going to be on specifically ICM. And I think that's going to be a must read to just sort of learn from the basics to the more advanced thinking and way to play through ICM. So ICM is like a huge factor if you're a middle stack at a final table. It's not as much of a factor if you're the big stack or the short stack. Because if you're the short stack, you're supposed to go out first. You're just supposed to go out first. So you can take a lot more chances and realize your full equity with the short stack. Meaning what I mean about that is, say you're in the big blind and someone min raises and you call, you should almost always call with almost every hand. And you should get all your chips in the middle with a gut shot or better if
Right.
you're the short stack, because you're supposed to go out next. And you don't have very many plays that are left for you to make as the short stack. And when
Yeah.
you're the big stack, you can just raise every hand indiscriminately until people start playing back at you, because especially if there's a short stack on the table and everybody's waiting for that short stack to go out to get a pay jump. In our final tables, in our home game, there's virtually no ICM involved until you get to heads up, because
Right,
there's only
right.
one prize,
Yeah,
right?
the pin.
So it's not a good simulation of real ICM. I always try to play it like we're playing for those play money chips, and to try and
Yeah.
play it like there's ICM, but it's not a great practice thing except for the heads up part of it.
So our
So-
monthly Wednesday, there is a ICM there because
Oh
you
yeah,
do-
could player
you
of
do-
the year race.
Yes. So there is
Yeah.
ICM there.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and that one is very much so.
I was just looking at that last hand from last night. So I had my sack was about 25,000. His was 114,000. I was on the button. I had tens, right, and I opened, and then we went through the whole deal, and I finally went all in. I'm like, what can I do? And then the final turn on the river was the 8 that gave the straight.
Oh, brutal.
I mean,
Well,
that's
you
part of
can't do
playing
anything.
poker,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. And part of it is also like being realistic about how much poker you're actually going to play. And like none of us are ever going to play enough poker to actually meet our variance in the long term. Like we're not going to put in enough hands in our lives to actually average out our good luck and our bad luck.
Right.
So there's an element of just sort of like, how important is it that we're perfectly balanced, making, 0.25 big blind EV decisions in every difficult spot, because you're just not really going to be in a chance. And especially for folks like us, how often are we even going to be playing against players that require that kind of sophisticated balance and defense? So I don't think there's anything wrong with just knowing, and like this is kind of like what Eric was saying, these solvers will give us these ranges. All that really means is like it's permission, if we want to play that range, knowing that that's like a mathematically solved profitable range.
Right.
If we feel like we're not going to be outskilling our opponents, then we probably shouldn't play the worst part of that range, because the profitability is so marginal already, and that's assuming that you're playing it perfectly. if you're playing it imperfectly, you're probably losing money on those hands, and you're better off just tightening your range and just folding them. So I think that's smart too. And like Eric says, in certain circumstances, you should be expanding that range even more, because the assumptions that you're making are different. If you've got different people in the blinds, you know, I've got people that fold their blinds like 95% of the time in my database over thousands of hands. And I would be crazy not to just open 100% of buttons there, even though no chart's going to tell me to do it. Just because that's what poker's all about, choosing when to deviate from these from the general rules and that kind of thing. But the solvers are helpful for knowing like what's the default that we can deviate from. Yeah. So I know, let me just try to think about this. One good thing I would say, I think maybe I'll put the link to, well, I showed you guys how to go watch the video. That was a good video from Ryan. It's about 50 minutes long, I think, and it goes through a few different hand histories, and he talks about some of these concepts during it. And he also introduces a few other concepts that we've kind of talked about in this before, but ultimately, Kevin, what it comes down to is you kind of have to choose what factors are important to you in that moment, in that hand. And like,
Right.
that's the hardest part about poker for me. I was talking to Kim about this earlier before we started recording today. There's like an almost infinite number of factors that we could be considering in any poker hand. And just sort of knowing what's important and how to prioritize that, and just not caring about the rest of the stuff, you know, that'll help you not just in poker, but in poker that'll particularly help. Do you guys, Kim and Eric, do you guys think about the difference between like the future game simulation and the ICM model? I'll just go over briefly. The ICM model basically says that you should be tightening up because in certain circumstances, because your bottom chip is more valuable than the rest. And future game simulation basically says you want to be more aggressive because later you might be able to leverage your chip stack better if you have more chips in there. So there's some tension there too. Kim, do you have a thought on that?
I haven't really looked into that one way or the other. Mine sort of history with learning this was more about future skill edge.
Yeah.
Rather than the game. I don't think that's the same as the future game simulation.
I don't think
it's quite the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same. I think it's the same concept that if you have a bigger stack later, a more skilled player will use it better than a less skilled player.
Yeah, this future skill edge is more like if you're on one of those spots that you know is a 50-50, most likely to be a 50-50, then you think you have a more skill against the field, then you shouldn't take that spot.
Yes.
Whereas if you think that the players are more skilled than you, then you should always take that spot. So, but I don't think it's the same thing. So I'm not as familiar with what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, this concept's come up in a couple of these LPP videos that we've been watching, the future game simulation, and it just basically says, you know, like because I'm a skilled player, says Ryan LaPlante, just to be clear, because I'm a skilled player, even though it's risky to take this chance now, if it goes my way later in the tournament, I'm going to have this huge chip stack, and that'll give me even more of an advantage than I would have otherwise, or than other people might have there. So it like counteracts some of the ICM factors. To me, it always feels like ICM is saying tighten up because you don't want to lose the tournament, which is true. And future game simulation is always saying, yeah, but wouldn't it be great? Just think about the kind of advantage you'd have if you won the hand. Eric?
Yeah. So I guess it's just a different way to model it, right? Just a different way to account for the different factors. Yeah, I haven't looked, I don't know the specifics of how it's being modeled, but I guess one.
Okay.
I lose, or if I put more chips in, I try to think about what will my chip stack be
Yeah.
if I have a bad result? Do I still have the same utility, right? So is it a difference between going from 30 to 20, 30 to 25? Is it difference between going 15 to 10? So I try to think of what's my
Oh, I just lost your.
so now it's me.
Okay.
So what's my resulting stack utility if things go bad? So, and it sounds like future game simulation thinks about, well, what's my stack utility if things go great, right? So
Right. Yeah, stack utility is a good way to be thinking about that
Yeah.
too.
I'm sorry, Jim, I have to bow out.
Okay.
We're just
You're
getting
gonna
ready to go
go-
for a boat ride
go-
to the rock on the dock.
Rock on the dock. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, you guys
have
rock
fun.
out.
Be safe.
Rock out on your dock.
Yeah.
Have fun.
All right. Thanks.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Yeah, I like that, Eric. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah, like stack utility, right? And so that's why we talk about the importance of sizing a lot too, because just the incremental difference of like an open ray sizing from 3x versus 2.25 or something like that. If you can put that extra 0.75 big blinds in your pocket every time you're making that open raise, that's just another way of making your future stack a little bigger. And I think that sizing is something we can all work on a lot. That was another thing that came out of those videos was different open raise sizing and different re-raise sizing as well. When you guys are getting short stacked, do you have like a standard 3-bet size when you're in position or out of position, or do you tailor it to the size of the bet, the original raise, or do you tailor it to something else, or how do you decide what size to make your 3-bet as stacks get smaller?
Probably do tailor it to the size of the bet, as long as it's within a range.
Mhm.
So like my default 100 big blinds cash is like 3-bet in position, it's 8 big blinds, out
Yep.
of position, it's 10.
Yep.
And then kind of scaling it to probably down to 5.5 to 6 as we get shorter stack in position, and then probably more like 6.5 out of position. But then at some point, right, if my stack is 20 big blinds or less, it's always a shove. So.
Yeah, good point. What about you, Kevin?
You don't want to know.
No. What made you react when we talked about shoving the 20 big
No, I
blinds?
mean that's where what Eric was talking about is where I'd like to get, right? Mine is usually my thinking is if I make it a 3-bet, how much can I get out of the person I'm trying to execute on, right?
Yep.
Are they tight? Are they more loose? Will they, if I contribute, will they contribute? Right? And what's that amount? Right?
Yeah, good. Yeah. And like Eric's saying, like he's got a default, and
Right.
then he uses that same process to decide whether to shade up or down because of those factors. So those are the right factors.
Yeah, I just don't have that, which I should, right? And that's what I've been working on along with the other stuff. It's to kind of toe in my crazy bet size, right?
Yeah. Although I say this a lot, but it's true. It's important to kind of know what are the like, 'cause there are some wrong bet sizes. Like there's not a lot of right answers in poker. There are some wrong answers. So if we can just kind of like understand the context enough to know what the wrong answers are and avoid them, then I think there's a lot of room in the middle for different right answers. There's a lot of different ways to have a right answer in poker. So I think if you put some time into just sort of especially in this part of the tournament, that's like 40 big blinds or less, there's a lot of solved stuff that can help us just eliminate some things that we don't even need to consider then in that moment.
Right.
So it's less about like knowing what's the right thing to do, and it's more about just knowing, all right, well, it's not going to be these things. So boy, isn't it nice to have all that extra brain space available to consider what's left. And yeah, and I think especially when we get into this like 40 big blinds and less tournament poker in particular, it's really a question of just like who's making fewer mistakes. It's not a question of who's doing it perfectly or even who's necessarily executing it well. It's just who's going to make fewer mistakes, who's going to make smaller mistakes, who's going to make mistakes at the less crucial parts of the tournament. So it's just raising your floor is actually
Right,
more
yep, and
important than raising your ceiling.
Yep, and that's really what I need to do, right? I think my base assumptions are correct. It's now bringing them into line of what could be profitable,
Yep.
right? Or what should be profitable. Like I had always heard that, we were talking about using your stack size, and I think I brought this up before to your benefit. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work, right? And then I've actually started putting it into execution, and it does actually work, right? People
Right.
don't like it when you come out with large steps.
Right.
You've got the biggest step. I'm on the button, and I don't even remember what I had. For a while there last night, I was getting kind of crazy, right? Every time I was on the button, the cutoff for the hijack, I was opening, right? And I was opening for, I was doing 2.5 big blinds, or I was trying to stay in that range.
Yep.
But I was just, I'd click, all right, they told me to do it, I'm doing it. And it worked out, right?
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. You'd enjoy, I remember when I was trying to, so one of the things that I found really helpful in that part of my poker journey was actually listening to people explain what they were thinking in real time. So Twitch Thursdays with Taylor would probably be a good thing for you to watch. There's a few episodes of that on YouTube for free, or you can watch them live on Thursday nights.
Right.
And the Peel for sure. I know Eric's got it set up so that sort of you have to sit in every once in a while to share or to be vulnerable with the group, but you can also watch videos from previous sessions. So you'd enjoy watching a few of those Peel videos, I think, and seeing what other players are thinking about in those moments, because that'll kind of like that helped me a lot, just watching along better players than me, what they're thinking about as they play the hand, and that helped me a lot.
Right. Yeah, we all know I'm willing to share, right?
I know, it's awesome, man. You've got that learner's mentality. That's what you need. It's very much in the rec poker model too, right? We're all here to learn. I learn so much more by like leading these discussions than I ever did just showing up and listening. I'll tell you, you got to put yourself into it to get the most out of it. That's been clear to me, for sure. Well, what else do you guys want to talk about? We got a few more minutes here. If we want to go into anything to do with the Learn Pro Poker training video, or late stage tournament play, or how to study, that kind of stuff.
For me, I've been having some decent runs lately, and for me, what's been working for me is just, knowing when to put it in and knowing when to like just fold and not get involved and let other people make mistakes. So for me, the short stack ninja was really a helpful book for me, to knowing like, and he made it a point in his book, is like people used to stress, people would stress like, oh, I'm down to 20 big blinds. Oh, I'm down to 15.
Yep.
But once you know how to play at each of those stack depths and what you're supposed to do, it's comfortable. I mean, it's so comfortable. I'm like, if I have to fold, I'm not getting good hands at, I'm 20 big blinds. Yeah, you're going to blind down. You just keep folding until you get 15. Well, you have different tools and different strategies at 15, and then at 12 and 10, you have different strategies. And so knowing my default strategies at each of those stack decks is it gives you power. I mean, it gives you power to be patient and disciplined, because I know, like, I don't mind blinding all the way down to 10. Well, at 10, then I start just shoving on people.
Yep.
So do both of you then have that type of strategy? Then do you both use that?
I'll tell you what helps me when I've got 20 big blinds and I keep not getting cards, and now I've got 18 big blinds, and now I've got 16 big blinds. Like, what helps me is knowing that I have a plan for what happens at 14 big blinds. So I don't need to just take some shot now with a hand that isn't part of my plan for 16 big blinds, because guess what? I just didn't get the hands I needed when I had 16 big blinds, and I need to just wait until I get a spot. And maybe that spot's at 14, or maybe that spot's at 12. But knowing that you have spots available to you in the future, even with a shorter stack, it'll prevent you from punting it off, honestly, at 20 big blinds.
Right.
And I think people have this like number where it's like, oh, 20 big blinds, time to get it in. It's like, no. You can make profitable decisions with fewer big blinds. So just wait till you have a profitable decision in front of you and then take that decision.
And also it helped me, like, you know, how you early in the, like at the second level, you double up aces versus kings and you got this big stack, and then you're card dead for the, you know, for a whole bunch, and you're just watching your stack just dwindle down. And it, before I would get frustrated because like, oh, why couldn't I, you know, get these aces versus kings when it was late? And but it's like, no, I got lucky early. What it gave me is the opportunity to be more patient and be more disciplined until I, you know, get those cards again. You may not, but I always think about, I don't want to punt it here, because what if I had just waited one hand later, I would have gotten those aces versus kings, and those chips I punted off, I could have doubled those. So I try to be disciplined on that.
And Kevin, man, you play enough hands, and like you play hundreds of thousands of hands of poker, and I guarantee you're going to get frustrated in one moment, and you're going to like punt it off with ace 10 offsuit or something, and you're going to get left with 2 big blinds, and the next hand you're going to get pocket kings. And you're going to be like, oh, if I had just waited one hand, I would have had 40 big blinds now. I can't tell you how many times that happened to me. I cannot tell you how many times that's happened to me. And it's a real lesson, because we feel like sometimes I feel like the way that we think of winning poker is like, how many hands did I win today? And that's just not the way you should be thinking about poker. Don't try and win hands. Try and win chips.
Just try to win a pin.
Just try to win a pin, baby.
Just win a pin. Come on.
Here, one thing, Kevin, I think you would enjoy. It's all part of your premium membership already. Go to the book study archive for one of those categories that I was talking about earlier. Yep. The game plan. We went through the game plan last year, I think.
Is that Ed Miller's?
This is Matt Matros.
Oh, Matt Matros. Okay.
And it is a really good way of keeping it simple, to build a sort of simple foundation that has all the same concepts of the stuff that we're talking here, but it's just its application is much easier. It puts it in a few different buckets that you can just sort of like think about, oh, this is one of these buckets, this is one of these buckets. It simplifies things a bit. And then when you get through this, he's really clear about like this is where you can take it from here. Develop this part of it, develop this part of it. And I really thought this was a good way of kind of crystallizing. And as you can see, it's not that big a book.
Right, yep.
And it's got some good tables and stuff in there as well. And you can watch all the old videos, and I think Rob even uploaded his notes, his notes from each session. His slides. Yeah, thank you. So you would get a kick out of that, I think. But again, it's like, how many hours in a week do we have to study and play poker? You know, I feel that crush all the time.
When you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Well, the game plan will be your friend then, I assure you. I also spent some early morning hours reading through poker books. So
I wanted to ask Eric, what do you think of Chris Wallace, right?
Me?
You did the short stack ninja.
That was great. That was a great that was a great book. Very helpful. It really gave me confidence in my short stack game, and having a plan and understanding. I mean, he goes into the math just enough. I mean, he says, you know, here's the math that, you know, my methods are, you know, mathematically, but he doesn't dwell on it. He's like, if you're interested, you can dig into it here, but basically but here are the tools. Here's how to use them.
Yeah, he's trying to like, he doesn't have to show his work in the same way that like the modern poker theory is. The mandate's different. And that's, I don't have, for whatever reason, I can't find my copy of Short Stack Ninja, but that's another great one, particularly for this area, because it sort of teaches you some of those general rules that you can then learn from, you know, how to deviate from later. So I think that's a good one too, for sure. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I always enjoy hosting these study groups. You know, we do one every Saturday. Oh, except maybe we'll make an announcement on Saturday, September 11th. I think Eric's going to be doing a special afternoon peel session that might even be a little longer. So if you're watching this at home, circle September 11th. Oh, and also Kevin, speaking while we're circling September 11th, I think at 1 p.m. Central, we're doing our next heads up bracket tournament. So you wanted to get some practice heads up, circle September 18th, Saturday, September 18th. It's another one of those free tournaments, but it's just heads up. And it's a great chance to get some of that practice in that unusual format. So I would circle that one.
Okay.
All right, sweet. Well, Kevin and Eric, thanks for coming. Eric, stick around after so we can chat. But I'll just stop this recording here, and I hope everyone had a wonderful time, and we'll see you again next week.